Yenlo is a platinum value-added reseller and became WSO2 Partner of the Year for 3 years in a row, starting from 2018. The pandemic has indeed changed the way our lives have been. Physical meetups changed to virtual meetups, social distancing became the new norm. Now that the world is trying to recover and rethink what they can do better to survive this pandemic, it's a good time for all of us to think about the next steps when it comes to your digital journey for enterprises. Ruben, over to you.
Yes, welcome. My name is Ruben, CEO and co-founder of Yenlo. Yenlo, you probably have heard of us for more than 14 years. We are the prime partner of WSO2, doing integrations and services all around the globe. But today it's all about West Europe. And a short introduction, 48 years old, almost 49. I'm married, father of three children. Yes, I do live in the Netherlands near Amsterdam, but honestly, I'm a globetrotter. I love to travel. A little bit of history. After 10 years of working in the IT industry, in 2007, together with Martin, I decided to start Yenlo, to drive the digital journey all across the world with open source technology. And that's the way we found WSO2 as one of our favorite technology vendors. Yes, in my daily role, I'm the CEO, but most of all, I see myself as an evangelist, a lot of energy, and I'm very enthusiastic about technology. And the reason behind that is because I think technology can really change the world. Just a couple of slides that you have the understanding who Yenlo is and where we are. We are for many years in operations now. Serving many customers all around the world, from our offices in Colombo, headquartered in Amsterdam, but also present in Stuttgart, Lucerne, Switzerland, Brussels, Belgium, Tilburg, the south of Holland, and North America being Seattle and Vancouver. And the reason behind this is when you talk about digital transformation, all of our customers, and that's the experience I want to share with you today as well, it's all about a digital journey whereby 24/7 operations is mandatory, because the world is one place for everybody, for also your end customer. So from our offices, geographical located across the world, we are able to deliver 24/7 managed services. So today it's about what's going on in West Europe and also a little bit the rest of the world. And I present these topics based on the discussions I have on a daily basis with our customer base. We serve more than 600 customers at the moment, and I just pick a few of them to give you a little bit of an example, to give you a little bit of view where the information is coming from. So we have a strong presence with Yenlo and WSO2 technology. Yeah? It's all about WSO2 in the finance and insurance industry. And of course, when you are in the finance industry, you know that in 2019, 2020, it was all about open banking and PSD2. And there is a solution for that. But we have the same footprint in the healthcare industry. And I will dive into that industry a little bit more during my talk. Education, very excited industry, because there is a total different thing going on in education, which needs to bridge the gap between what students want and what university can deliver. There is a huge thing going on in government in general, but especially in Europe. I will dive into that as well. And of course, public transport in general, where things like budgets and the CO2 is an important topic. I will dive into that. And besides that, many other logos which we serve. And what's the reason I present you these logos is basically the following. Because talking to these customers and talking to the CIOs and the architects of these companies, they have something in common. They are in the need of transform themselves. They are in the need of reinventing themselves, their services or their products or their go-to-market or the way they engage with their end customers, with the help of digitalization, with the help of new state-of-the-art technology. And there are some reasons behind that, which I want to address with you. And lessons learned and topics discussed, I drilled down to just a few. One of my friends, Sander Post, told me once, a couple of months ago, we are in the middle of a scarcity syndrome. What basically means that all over the industry, doesn't matter actually in which industry you are, we have a lack of people, we have a lack of trained employees at the moment, but this lack of trained employees will even explode in the near future. And the near future is not far away. It's predicted already that across industries in 2025, 1 out of 5 vacancies can be filled in. We simply have shortage of people who are able to deliver the products and services companies wish for. So something has to change there. Another thing, what's going on, especially in Western Europe, and that is even emphasized due to the whole Corona and the whole pandemic going on, that budgets are under a very tight and under a very high pressure. So each and any company, especially when you talk about the education, healthcare, and transport industry, it's all about how can we control our budget, but in the same time address our digital journey, and in the same time address the syndrome that we have less employees. Something has to change there. And besides all of that, when you closely listen, I closely listen to my customers, they also have to deal in the same time with new regulations, either by law or either by the European Commission, new initiatives and new technology. And my customers, they have to listen to those new initiatives, either because it's mandatory or even more relevant to stay relevant in the industry. Because there are a lot of startups, there are a lot of high-tech companies which are competitive because they have smarter technology. So the established customers, established companies, they have to change themselves to stay competitive and to stay relevant. To name a few things, which is a little bit of common ground when you look at Europe. After 19 and 20, the whole banking industry changed with open banking PSD2. And the same happens now in the coming 2 years with the healthcare industry. And that is driven by the open healthcare specification. And under the hood, we talk about FHIR standards. I have a couple of slides specific for this one. But another thing that's going on, and actually the start was made in the US, but you see that this is coming to Europe rapidly, is what I call smart transit or smart public transportation. And the key thing about that is that 120 countries, they signed just now in Glasgow a new covenant where they said we want to reduce the CO2 pollution emission. And to do so, there is a huge pressure on the transportation sector to reduce the way we consume gas and oil, for instance, and that we can reduce the amount of movements. So smart transportation is the new thing for the coming 3 years, I think, in both the US and Europe. When you translate this a little bit to technology, for instance, with open healthcare, open banking, but also with smart transit, it also means you have to introduce new technology to implement and to support this. And one of them is, of course, Internet of Things, IoT, which needs streaming data and event management capabilities of your solution. And I hear quite often that Kafka is a great technology to add to your landscape and to add to your IT portfolio to support that kind of new technology initiatives, which by themselves support, for instance, a smart transportation implementation. And last but not least, the area or the period of that ESB, Enterprise Service Bus, is getting a little bit behind us, where The ESB was a great vehicle to implement a service-oriented architecture. I think currently, to do things smarter, it's more moving towards an event-driven architecture at scale. And that means you have to change your FET service-oriented architecture, and you have to change that in a more lightweight, easy to maintain microservice architecture to deal with that phenomenon. And SC stands for serverless computing. So microservices and serverless computing, for the technology guys among us, maybe something with Lambda. I think that's the new architecture way to move forward in a distributed compute model. So talking to my customers and talking across Europe with companies, and these are the three main things which you can digest from those conversations, which I think we need to address, we in the IT industry, in the coming years. The question though is, how are we moving forward? And from a very high over perspective, because we have a shortage of people in the coming years, and that will even go further and further, we have to change the way we work. We have to work smarter and more efficient. And I am of a strong opinion that companies have to change the way they operate, and they have to focus on their core business only. So leave the IT and leave the commodity processes and the commodity stuff, leave it to specialists, and focus yourself, because you have a shortage of people and employees, focus yourself in your added value in the chain. So that's very high over, and the question though for me is, how can we achieve that? So let's make it a little bit tangible. I believe that the way to move forward to implement smarter work and more efficiency is that you have to do offloading of your work and reduce the workload you encounter as a company. For instance, by focusing on self-services towards your end customers. Or I think Roland from UKT will briefly touch that. Customers can mean also patients. So why not pushing things you are doing now inside your company, push it towards your end customers in a self-service space? But also, we can work more efficient by even further automate and integrate application to application or application to sensors or integration in the B2B chain. We started with that digital journey already for years now, but honestly speaking, I think we are only at 40%. There are still very inefficient protocols. There are still very inefficient business processes across the B2B chain. And we can even further optimize that by implementing new technology, smarter technology. So to make it even more concrete, if you have a legacy system inside your enterprise, for instance, you have an EHR system, which is maybe a kind of old-fashioned with older protocols, and you want to enable self-service to your customers, the only way forward is to create mobile apps on top of it. And to do so, you need to address something, how you open up that legacy system with services, APIs, and from APIs to your mobile app. It is ready. We have the solutions on the top of our fingers. So it's just a matter of doing. But also, when you look at smart transportation, the bringing in IoT sensors and in healthcare, for instance, wearables, will really drive the digital journey and will really offload work from your enterprise to, for instance, the customers, or offload it to technology who can do it for you. To give you a very good example about sensors in public transportation, We are currently conducting a project whereby IT sensors are able to see the crowd on a loading platform in buses or metros and redirect the crowd or reschedule the number of buses. That's one example how sensors can contribute to a smarter public transportation, whereby the customer experience is getting better, but also the implementation and the usage of assets like a metro or a bus is being optimized. So it works both ways. Another example in smart transportation, honestly speaking, that is triggered by the Paris Convention and now in Glasgow, to optimize the CO2, or not optimize, to reduce the CO2 pollution, that the traffic lights are green all the time when a bus comes through. So the bus stops in, well, we do this now in Washington State, the bus stops are reduced with 40%. That means 40% when a bus stops means less CO2 pollution. Another one is focus on the internal external data exchange. So that's what I mean in the B2B. You can even optimize your business process by introducing new standards like fire in the healthcare. And I strongly believe, don't do it yourself. There are platform as a service out there. So focus on your core business and utilize a platform as a service, or as Gartner positioned it, a hybrid platform as a service, which is cloud agnostic, which is capable of all the new technologies like Kafka and microservices. And you can focus on your core business and the technology is there at your fingertips. And obviously APIs, and then I follow the Gartner and the Forrester predictions that 10 billion APIs in 2025. This is a phenomenon we cannot stop anymore, and it will actually accelerate your time to market. To smooth the path to Roland, his talk about healthcare, I want to focus a little bit on healthcare, how this technology and things that are going on impacts the healthcare industry. I just spoke about the lack of resources, and that is even in healthcare worse, because the demand for care and cure, by the way, in the coming years will even increase more and more and more, partly due to elderly people, but also things like a pandemic will have a huge increase of the demand for care in the healthcare industry. The predictions for the scarcity syndrome in healthcare are not 1 out of 5, but even 1 out of 7. Why? Because healthcare, the learning curve and the seniority is quite high. So the predictions are 1 out of 7 vacancy can be filled in only a couple of years from now. And even the budgets all over the industry are under pressure. In healthcare, they are extremely under pressure, because the costs rises enormously, for instance, for medicines and operations. So the same things that goes along with across industry, in healthcare, they are even worse. And I think the timing is not very well, but already mandatory by law in the US, and the European Commission is working on mandatory regulations in Europe as well. That means each country in the EU by law shall be enforced to implement open healthcare. My prediction is that it will come in 2022, whereby it will be mandatory in 2023 and onwards. So on the healthcare industry, there is a huge pressure, and in the coming years, the healthcare industry does have to change to deal with it. The question is, what can we do? So when I come back to my high over examples, to offload work and reduce the number of work, I think in the healthcare industry, there should be a push for patient self-onboarding and self-examination. So let's do the simple tasks remotely, doctor at a distance. That's a way more efficient than patients coming to a hospital or to a cure center where you have the administration, you have the assistants, you have the doctor, you have the waiting room. So doctor at a distance, whereby a patient can do self-examination to a certain extent, of course. It doesn't replace the specialist, of course, but it will help to offload work in the end. Another example more on the technology. When I speak about mobile apps in the healthcare industry, there is something great going on. So on top of your EHR system, whether it is SAP or it is Epic, let's build mobile apps to support that self-onboarding and to support a doctor at a distance. Something else I notice in a couple of hospitals here back in the Netherlands is wearables. So there are many great wearables already on the market. We only have to proceed with the last step, and that is make them compliant so that we can trust the output of sensors and wearables, that it is trusted by specialists to make a diagnostic on top of those data that's coming out of those wearables. I think we are already at 90% of that compliancy. It's just a matter of finalizing. And why is that important? Because with those sensors and with those wearables, the doctor can do even better diagnostics at a distance. And also in healthcare, I think they are a couple of years behind with the interoperability. So there is a lot of ground still that can be improved when it comes to data exchange, both internally in the care or core, the care and or cure institute, like a hospital, but also in the B2B. There is still a lot of manual labor, manual interaction between a hospital and the outside world. By simplifying that with, for instance, FHIR standards, and by optimizing that with APIs, I think there is a huge improvement that can be realized. So when I look at the technology in healthcare, the next 2 years, it's all about opening up your EHR system with standardized APIs, organize your patient consent management, because by that you are in control of who is doing what with your data. I think that is the key thing when it comes to open healthcare and FHIR regulations. You don't have to do it yourself. Roland will dive into the university hospital in Tübingen, Germany. And one of their key pillars there is they utilize Connext, which is an integration platform as a service. And the reason behind that is that hospitals like UKT, but also all the others out there, you can focus on your core business, and that means taking care of your patients with your specialist. Well, the technology will follow, and that technology is ready out of the box available. And what is a good platform as a service, and obviously Connext implements that, it's all about APIs and interoperability. And interoperability comes with it comes with regular services, but it also comes with a microservice approach. And the good news about that is it's fully GDPR across industry, but especially for healthcare, you're also directly open healthcare compliant. And just getting to my last couple of slides, the key thing about the platform as a service for me, and that's what we also concluded talking about the customers in Europe, it's all about high availability. It's all about scalability. It's all about security, support, short time to market. It must be affordable and so on. These 8 topics are always the same topics in each company, each enterprise I talk to. And why you should invent this all yourself with a lot of technical people, and you do Docker and Kubernetes and Micro and all that kind of stuff, when it is available for you. So having the scarcity syndrome in the back of your mind, lack of people, having the push for technology and regulations, my strong belief is that you should utilize technology which is ready, out of the box available. And in our case, that is our Connect platform. So I hope that with this talk, you have a rough indication what's going on in Europe in general and specific in the healthcare industry. And by that, I would like to introduce to you, Roland. Roland is one of our valuable customers based in Germany. He's a very moderated guy. It's stated here integration architect, but I think it's one of the great visionaries when it comes to integration, when it comes to event-driven architectures, but most of all, how you can implement great technology to support your business processes. So if there are no questions for me right now, I don't see anything in the chat, then a warm welcome for you, Roland, and I hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Ruben. Okay. As Ruben said, I'm going to talk about how we changed from the old medical systems, which are around there, to some kind of modern digital services, including our patients, which hasn't been done before. I will show you the road from the HL7 world, which is the old world, to an API-driven world, which we need to integrate patients, to create communication between medical personnel and the patients, which is currently, or in before, it has been complicated. Okay, who I am. Roland Wenzel. I'm slightly older than Ruben. I'm working for IT in the software development department in the University Hospital in Tübingen. My main focus is on IT security, but in the last time I went into application security, security integrations. I've been a security architect a lot of times. And so what you see in my talk is there will be a lot of security talk included in there in all those integrations. Okay, the University Hospital in Tübingen. Oops, sorry. We are one of the major hospitals in Germany. As you see the numbers, we are treating around about 500,000, short of 500,000 patients each year. We have around about 5,000 physicians, nursing staff working directly on the patients. But keep in mind, we are not only a hospital, we are a university as well. So we have scientists, we have researchers. And that's not only students doing their PhD thesis to become a doctor, but we have researchers doing deep research on medical treatment, on medical conditions. This is all included in the treatment. So the data we create while treating a patient, we use to improve our knowledge on that kind of sickness. Okay, so this is some specialty when we are talking not only about treating patients, but on research in the healthcare business. Okay, the current state. So far, it's rather easy. There's a doctor, there's a patient, the doctor treats the patient, and there's some kind of IT which supports the doctor, keeps the documents and does the applications and things like that. And that's it. There is no real digital connection between the doctor and the patient yet. If the patient wants to transport data to the doctor, he has to rely on either fax or telephone. That's it. There's no direct connection where the patient can say, okay, here are my data, and I give them, or I can talk about them with my doctor. I can give them directly, digitally to my doctor. No way, it's not possible. But this current state of work, it's working. Has been working for the last 30, 40 years without any flaw. The technology behind that is based on HL7 version 2, basically. That's a rather old protocol. It's a serial protocol, and it's push messaging all the way. So there's an event that creates a message, and the message is sent out to everybody who wants to listen. And all you have to do is open your system, accept the message, and do whatever you want with it. It's pretty stable, and as I said before, it's working. It's indeed really working, and it will probably work for the next decade as well, because it's there, it's reliable, and it fits the bill for doctor treats patient. But as Ruben has said before, there are several challenges which can't be handled by the current setup. We have, or both sides, the patients as well as the doctors require some kind of communication in between. And this is due to the fact you have, you apply medicine to a patient, and then you want to have the result, how it is working, not within weeks or months, but within hours. Because if it doesn't work, you change the treatment. You have to. And that requires direct communication between the physician and the patient, all GDPR compliant. That is one major block. The second is you have to have some kind of patient self-service for all the administration stuff, for self-diagnostics using, for example, an wearable. And for that, the old world with that messaging, that push messaging, isn't just working. But there's an obvious solution. You just have your HL7 system that copies data or messages data into some kind of proxy. The proxy persists the data, and you extract those data out of your proxy using any modern protocol you want to. And almost all of the systems out there handling patient communication with the doctor rely on that solution, some kind of data proxy in between. It looks more or less the same wherever you look. The better solution, in my view, on our view, better solution is you extract the data directly out of the system using some kind of data connector. You put a security layer in front, and here we come back to security, and use a pull service out of the source where the data are. And that by that you prevent having two data sources, the proxy and the original source, and have direct access to your golden source, your data, your real data. And on top of that, you have to have some kind of patient identity and access management. Without that, it just doesn't work. And that patient identity and access management has to be as tightly integrated into your data layer, because we have all this consent management, we have some kind of patient identity stored somewhere which can identify this is indeed my patient. I have to make sure that this is my patient and nobody else is getting here into my communication. We have set up this together with Yenlo and WSO2. As you can see on the right side, there's still the old HL7 in the background. And as I said before, those won't go away. They will be there in the next decade in any case. There's an API management in front. This is Connext. And because we are a healthcare organization, we shouldn't run that API management, which is quite some block of technology. Shouldn't run it by ourselves, so we just use it as integration as a service. There's an ID management in front. This one is on-site because we decided patient identities last forever. Okay, until death. But they are still there for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And we have to make sure that the identities stay with us because we have to have our patient as close as possible to us. So ID management is run on site. And there's an ESB between the API management layer and the HL7 component in case the API management can't communicate through some kind of connectors directly to our HL7 source. So we have to some kind of integration layer in between. This is not WSO2, it's another solution from Extension. They are pretty good on HL7 integration. So we are using that one to get from HL7 using an ESB, which is not a data proxy. It's not storing any data. It's just transforming them into some kind of web services, and the web services are secured by the API management. Okay, what we get is we have managed APIs, not only APIs, but managed APIs. As REST services, we can integrate our external developers and our internal researchers into that API management because they can consume APIs out of the API store. We have created an identity management for patients, and that identity management is running on modern protocols, OpenID Connect, even SAML, whatever we want to. So we can identify patients, authenticate them using protocols which are common in mobile apps. Talk back to the API management. There's a security layer as well, a second one, and then get the data out of the backend. All together looks, that's our central integration platform. In the middle is the ESB, the API management, and the ID management. In the middle on the right side is some kind called IHE. That is metadata management. You have to tag your data somehow to make sure that you can correlate the patient identity to his own data. And that IHE is more or less a huge registry. In the bottom is our backend systems. So all the lab and the archive, the PACS, the radiology systems. And out there are all those closed apps, cloud apps, our local German healthcare infrastructure set up by Gematik. And this is what we have by now. Connext is the API management, as I've said before. So it's even if it's small on the picture, it's the biggest block in the entire architecture. Okay, next in line. Because we have by now the API management, we can move forward to integrate FHIR, which is more or less HL7 version 4, but it's got a different name because the technology is entirely different. It's REST services, it's pull instead of push. You can see it in the upper right. That's what a fire source or a fire communication looks like. And we enable our backends to either talk fire with us directly, or we use some kind of connectors. For that, we use the WSO2 Open Healthcare for the backend integration. And we create APIs out of the fire specification, because fire doesn't expose any open API or Swagger files. So we have some kind of adapter between the file specification and whatever you need to get an API out. So open API file, more or less. And this is backend and middleware, and it's all secured by the identity management and the API management. So we have patient identification, we have API security. Those both are coming from WSO2 and are tightly integrated. It's a huge advantage to have that together, and because it's so easy to have an API, to expose it, and all the security just is there. It's running on common protocols. It's easy to integrate, easy to run. It's just common standard as everybody's using for their mobile apps. There's no difficulty in there. And that's it for my presentation.
Roland, how fast do you think mobile apps based on fire APIs will be introduced in the healthcare industry?
We are talking about months, not years, because everybody wants it. Doctors were asking for that for the last 2 or 3 years, because so far we haven't had a technical solution for them.
Yeah.
We had those data proxies, but that's only good for 100 patients, but not for 10,000. It doesn't scale up. And with the Connect platform, we got all this, what you've seen, the central integration platform, we got this up within half a year, fully. From nothing to full bore in half a year. It's impressive. Because we didn't have to handle the background, the integration part. The only thing we had to worry about is the identity server itself, which is running on site. But even there, we had help from Yenlo. And by now, we are ready to integrate this open healthcare. I've heard something about 2 months, and then we are done. And we have already 2 projects running. They're programming apps using stub APIs, so mock APIs. So they are more or less ready. As soon as we are ready with the fire adapters, we will be online.
Okay.
The question is more or less, the data are stored in silos, in different systems, in different locations. How do we get access to those? And this is something we experience as well, because the data are spread out through the entire architecture somewhere. What we do is we separate between backend integration and the developers doing the actual application development. So there's a database. We expose that database as an API. That's rather simple. Or we have some kind of connector into the backend system. We have some kind of integration. As long as that backend system talks with some kind of protocol, we can access it. And then we create an API out of that, and the application developers consume those APIs. So we have a separation between backend and front end, because the application developers shouldn't run around and hunt their data down. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
Dora is nodding vigorously.
I agree with you, Roland. So I think definitely. So one thing that I can think of, I can think of multiple things here. One is that you can tap into those data sources and then obviously expose them as APIs, and then make sure that those data that is available as part of your platform. You can also figure out, if you look at it from an architectural point of view, you can figure out by looking at the data, what are the different entities that you have and which systems they belong to. Do you want to still keep the ownership of those entities with those systems or not, right? And then you will often see some of these entities get split into, or part of these entities are used by different systems, and they can be facilitated through integration, right? The other aspect is a technology like GraphQL, for example, can also help in here. If you want to unify all these data that comes from different places into a single schema, in reality, they may not be in as part of a single schema, but a technology like GraphQL actually achieves that. It gives your developers a single schema to work with without having to worry about where that data is, and the GraphQL servers or the APIs will figure out where the data is and give it to you. But from a developer's perspective, you just have a single schema. You know what entities are there, what attributes are there. You can start coding based on that, right? But to feed data into the GraphQL schema, you still need to do your integrations. So there can still be a REST API or a API that exposes the data source directly. Yeah.
Yeah, the problem is, it's most of the times you don't own the data, so all you get is some kind of access into the backend, and then you have to expose it. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thanks, Roland. Thanks, Vidura. We have a question to Ruben. You were talking about Connect's platform and made a link to you, Katie. What can you tell us about implementation time and budget?
Interesting question. You can see me again, yeah?
Yes.
So the Connect platform is a fully 100% managed integration platform as service provided obviously from the cloud. So the rollout of the platform is just a matter of hours/days. And then the next phase, what we did with UKT, is we have to hook it up with the internal backend system. So then it's all about creating the connectivity. So that's just another couple of days to arrange the connectivity. And the last part is making services on top of it, on top of the ESB in this case, to expose the backend data and systems. And that took us, Roland, I think roughly 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So the complete rollout and the first integrations were done in, let's say, 5 weeks time. And the project and extension Roland was talking about, whole fire, that will have a start to finish in roughly 8 weeks. So that's it basically. And what is the end result for the Connect platform, which includes identity and access management? The end result is that there is a full-blown integration platform as a service up and running 24/7, fully integrated with the existing identity management solution on-prem, well connected in a hybrid mode with the cloud PaaS platform. And why is that important? Because now UKT has got the capability to develop mobile apps on top of it, without worrying anymore about infrastructure, identity access management, and so on. So Roland and his team can simply now expose the SAP EHR system. Well, the whole infrastructure and architecture is already there, that mobile apps can consume it. So 5 weeks and 8 weeks.
I'd like to thank all our speakers for taking their valuable time off to share their expertise with our audience. Hope the sessions gave you a good understanding of how to simplify and expedite digital transformation initiatives.